Welcome back, future doctors. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Today we have a very practical and useful topic to discuss, and that is the topic of improving your memory. Why is this so practical and useful? Because as you know, if you want to become a doctor, you have to be in school for a whole lot of years. You have to take a whole lot of classes, you have to learn a whole lot of stuff, and that involves memorizing a whole lot of things. So memorization and learning is a big part of this process. I remember in medical school taking anatomy and having to memorize hundreds, if not thousands, of body parts. There were bones and parts of bones, organs, blood vessels, nerves, muscles, and the muscle connections, like where each muscle connects to each different bone. So there was a lot to memorize. Not only did I have to memorize the parts by themselves, but at the same time, I had to learn how each part functioned. For example, which muscles make your arm lift sideways? Or which nerves make your fingers able to move, like grab something or extend? I'm sure you remember that too, Dr. Zulma, don't you?
Oh dear, I think I lived in that anatomy lab.
Uh-huh.
Yes, very much do I remember. I remember looking at the big anatomy book, remember, and thinking, how in the world am I going to memorize everything in that book?
Uh-huh. Oh, yes, I remember thinking that too. It's like, how much can I cram in here in
I
like
know.
3 months? Because that was basically how long we had to learn anatomy. Even if you're not taking anatomy, most classes you will take as a pre-med in college and later on in medical school will require a lot of memorization as part of your learning process. So learning some tips and tricks to improve your ability to memorize things is going to give you a leg up, but only of course if you put them to work. So we're going to cover a few things in this episode. First, we're going to talk briefly about how learning happens in our brain and just a little bit of a note. So nobody, not even like the best neuroscientist in the world, understands completely how learning works because the brain is a very complicated organ with about 86 billion brain cells called neurons. These brain cells or these neurons are all interconnected in very complex ways, kind of like the strings in a very large and intricate spider web. Trying to understand how these about 90 billion neurons work together to build memories and learn is really challenging. But we have learned a lot through medical technology like brain scans, so there are some things that we do know. So, encoding involves your brain taking what you just saw, what you just heard, or maybe what you felt or smelled or tasted, and converting it into chemical and electrical signals in the neurons of your brain. These chemical and electrical signals create what's called a memory trace. In the next step, the brain basically takes that memory trace and reorganizes and stabilizes it. Nobody really knows exactly how this happens, but we think that the brain replays the information and tries to make sense of it. It connects it to things we already know or to past experiences. It tries to fill in the blanks, and it may even try to attach meaning to the things that we just learned. So, have you ever heard the term use it or lose it? In other words, like if you don't use something that you just learned, you're going to eventually forget it. So that's what this next step is all about. We'll talk about the importance of something called retrieval or recall practice. Okay, so let's focus on this very important concept of retrieval practice or recall practice, which is an excellent form of active learning. If you remember on our episode on study habits, we talked about the importance of active learning, right? Like, how do you not just learn something for the first time when you read it, but then it's gone like a week later? How do you actually remember it and force your brain to memorize it for the long term? So, the first idea is that we have to practice retrieving or recalling learning from memory. In other words, they call it self quizzing. There are other methods. So, one method is when you're reading something, pause to ask yourself without looking back at the text, what are the key ideas that I just read? What words or terms are new to me? What do they mean? Can I define them to myself or to someone else? How do these concepts I'm learning relate to what I already know? And how would I explain this to someone else if I had to? So, this whole concept of explaining this to someone else, it's great because it's another method of quizzing yourself. So if you ever have like studied in a group or studied with a partner, this is a great way of quizzing yourself. Another technique you can use is called concept mapping, or some people call it mind mapping. So then another thing, like I mentioned in anatomy, I would just draw out the heart. I did this with a lot of other things, like in biochemistry, you have to learn a lot of pathways, like the glycolysis pathway, which converts glucose into energy. So the way I memorized that was just by writing it out over and over again. So another concept is about spacing out your self-quizzing. So basically, after you study something or learn something for the first time, it's normal to forget some of it after a while. And if you quiz yourself on it again the next day, you're actually going to probably remember most of it or a good amount of it. But if you wait a week or a few weeks, you'll probably forget most of it by that time. We'll talk about other things you can do to keep your brain and your memory functioning at its best, such as getting enough sleep. You have to get enough sleep. Now, you might not be able to get enough sleep 100% of the time, but try your best to get enough sleep most of the time. And why is this? When we're sleeping, it's sort of like the housekeepers of the brain are coming in. So that's when the cleanup processes of the brain happening. And one of those processes is what we talked about, this memory consolidation. So taking those memory traces from what you learned that day, organizing and stabilizing them in order to get on that path towards long-term memory. So if you're sleep deprived, if you're not getting enough sleep, the amount of sleep you need at night to feel well rested, a couple of things happen. So, first of all, your brain neurons, the cells of your brain, cannot fire as well because that cleanup was not done properly overnight. Also, you can't focus well. I'm sure that's familiar to you, Dr. Zulma,
Oh
right?
yeah, I remember I was in residency and it was a post call day. Post call just means that you've worked over 24 hours straight, and we were rounding in the morning, and um, I was my turn to present a patient overnight, and all of a sudden I look at everybody's face and then my attending, which is the doctor teacher, and they look so confused. And I thought, why are they look? Did I say
Uh
something wrong? I was speaking Spanish instead of English.
huh.
So yeah, you don't
Oh my
focus. And
gosh,
I
that's
had no
hilarious.
idea. And my friend started laughing, my co-resident, and I said, What did I say?" And she's like, "You've been talking Spanish the entire time." I was like, "Really?" I mean, that's how, and that's sleep deprived. I had not slept in like what,
Uh-huh.
25, 26
Yeah.
hours straight at that point.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. So sleep deprivation does very strange things to your brain. So you need it, right? Like, and of course, like when you're a resident, you have to do those overnight shifts. Like, you're not always going to get that sleep, but then hopefully you go home and you catch up on that sleep that you
Yeah.
need. Next tip on taking care of your brain, which is part of the rest of your body, is regular exercise, and specifically cardiovascular exercise. A lot of us, when we think of exercise, we think that, oh, I should exercise in order to get a six pack or to lose weight or to be really good at sports. But if I don't care about any of those things, I don't have to exercise. So, unfortunately, that is a pretty common misconception that exercise is just for people who care about their appearance or their sports performance or their weight. But really, cardiovascular exercise is important for everybody. No matter what your weight or your size, exercise can be so beneficial. And the way your cardiovascular system is your heart and all of your blood vessels in your body. You have your heart, which is connected to these blood vessels that run throughout your whole body. When your heart pumps, it's delivering blood, which contains oxygen and energy and nutrients, to all of your muscles, your head, including your brain, your eyes, your mouth, your organs, your lungs, intestines, kidneys, etc., and everything else that needs those things. So, those blood vessels that carry blood and oxygen and nutrients throughout your body are very important. If they are not healthy, then your muscles and your organs, including your brain, can't be as healthy as they should be because they can't get those things that they need, including oxygen and energy and nutrients. Cardiovascular exercise is anything that gets your heart pumping and forces you to start breathing faster. So these are things like soccer, dancing, aerobics, running. Think of anything that just makes you work really hard. Your body releases chemicals during that process that help keep those blood vessels young and healthy and pliable and rubbery and soft. So people who don't exercise regularly, they can actually develop stiff blood vessels that don't deliver blood very well to various parts of their body, including your brain, your heart, your muscles, everything else. This can increase your risk of cardiovascular diseases like heart attacks and strokes. Studies have also shown that not getting enough exercise can lead to higher rates of memory problems like dementia and Alzheimer's. And this is at least partly because those blood vessels that supply oxygen and energy and nutrients to your brain, they don't work as well as they should. So the bottom line is exercise to take care of your body, including your heart, your blood vessels, and your brain. You don't have to run marathons or win dance competitions. Just move your body and get that heart pumping at least 3 days a week for 30 to 60 minutes. And just do whatever you can. Try to fit it in. If you have to start making a habit of it and just start once a week, then do that. And then slowly, as you can, increase it to 2 times a week or 3 times a week, whatever you can do. Even if you don't end up with those six-pack abs, your body and your brain and your memory will thank you. Your whole body is kind of like a car, right? Except when it comes to your body, I like to remind people you only get one. If you ruin your body without taking care of
replacement.
it, you don't. Exactly. You don't get another one. No matter how much money you have, you can't buy a new body. So you need to take care of it if you want it to work well for you. So how do you take care of your body as a whole in a way that will keep your brain and your memory in optimal shape? You have to give the car the right fuel. So what is the right fuel? We don't have time to go into much detail, but generally speaking, whole grains. So whole grains are things like whole wheat bread or whole wheat berries, brown rice instead of white rice, quinoa, buckwheat. There are a whole bunch of whole grains, but the ones we usually eat are like rice and wheat. So trying to make those whole grains instead of the refined grains like the white rice and the regular white wheat flour that we use can get your body more fiber and more of those nutrients that it needs. Also, of course, we all know we should eat our fruits and vegetables, and the more colorful, the better. There are also healthy proteins. White meats, red meats are not so great really when it comes to health because of the high levels of saturated fat. But also beans and tofu are included in those healthy proteins. Dairy can be part of a healthy diet, but it's actually not necessary for good health. As long as you're getting calcium from other sources, including soy, beans, lentils, peas, dark leafy greens, some nuts and seeds, you're going to be fine. And then, of course, get used to drinking water. Water should be the main thing that you're drinking each day. Ideally, really the only thing you're drinking. We want to limit sugar, including all of those like soft drinks. Even Gatorade and Powerade can have a lot of sugar. And then, of course, limit processed foods. So, Doritos and chips are like a highly processed food because where did they come from? Well, I guess mostly from corn, but do Doritos look anything like corn? No, they don't, because they went through a lot of processing in order to come up with that Dorito, right? So anything else that's gone through a lot of processing in order to create the food that's in front of you, like if you can't understand everything in that ingredient list, it's probably a processed food, to be honest. So, and then of course, if you have food sensitivities, gluten intolerance, lactose intolerance, anything else, respect them. Listen to your body and feed it what makes it feel best. You do not have to be a nutrition Nazi. Just do what you can to keep improving little by little as you are able to. Thanks so much, everyone, for checking out this video preview of our episode. To hear the full episode, please visit our website at www.futureminoritydoctor.com or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Also, stay tuned about new releases, giveaways, events, and more by following us on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok.